All right, we're going to go ahead and get started. Good morning, everyone. I'm glad you could join us today, and thanks for coming back. I know we postponed this date for this really exciting session that we're having this morning. This is our fourth academic hot topic series of 2022. My name is Carrie Camel of the A-CAPP Center, and we're excited that you're all here with us. And we have one of our campus partners with us, Rabindra Ratan, today. So we designed these academic hot topic sessions in order for all of you to hear about what academic research is going on campus and from some of our experts here at MSU and how it relates to the world of anti-counterfeiting and brand protection. These events are always free of charge and open to anyone in the brand protection field. And we are recording this session today. So if you have questions, I encourage you to use the Q&A feature here in Zoom today, so we can make sure we can get all those questions to Robbie. This event is part of our outreach program, which focuses on topics that are relevant to brand protection practitioners. A reminder for those of you who may know, we also have our brand protection professional online magazine that is available on a quarterly basis. Our last edition was just launched 2 weeks ago. You can find those articles online, and we encourage you to read them, share them, and if you're ever interested in writing, please reach out to our editor-in-chief, Leah Everett Burks. We also have our ongoing brand protection professional certificate that is available. It's online, self-guided. There are 17 courses for it. If you're interested in that, feel free to reach out to me. A special thanks to everyone at the center who's helped make this possible. And I also want to thank our gold sponsor, Abbott, for making this series possible this spring. So today I'm excited to be hosting one of our partners and professors on campus to talk about his research and perspective on the metaverse and NFTs. Professor Rabindra Ratan of MSU is an associate professor and AT&T scholar at MSU's Department of Media and Information, as well as director of the social and psychological approaches to research on technology interaction effects. He conducts research on the effects of human technology interaction, focusing on how media technologies influence meaningful outcomes across societal contexts. Feel free to read his complete bio on the A-CAPP Center site, as well as on his site at MSU. So Robbie, thanks for joining us this morning. We're excited to have you. And I know you had a presentation for us this morning, but I wanted to sort of start out with a big picture question. Why do you study the metaverse and all of everything going on in the online space? And why is it important to all of us?
That's a good question. Well, I've been studying the metaverse long before I knew it was a metaverse, or I was studying the metaverse in many ways. I will turn on my presentation just for just as a kind of way to respond to that question. In 1992, I read the book, in 2005, I read the 1992 book Snow Crash, which coined the term metaverse and illustrated this concept of a persistent virtual world that kind of allowed everyone to connect with each other in immersive ways, kind of like the internet, but in virtual reality. And I was inspired. I thought, wow, this is cool. This is the future. Second Life was just becoming a thing. And I was encouraged to read that book by one of my mentors, Jeremy Valenson at the time, who was and continues to be perhaps the world's foremost virtual reality researcher. And so I thought, wow, well, if he believes that this science fiction will actually become science fact someday, and he's written papers to that effect, that the way that science fiction presents questions about avatars and virtual worlds and online interactions is actually relevant to the social science that we conduct. If that's going to become real, then I want to study that now so I can be prepared for this future. So now here we are in this future. I didn't anticipate that the term metaverse would become so popular, but I guess Neil Stephenson planted a bug in Mark Zuckerberg's ear. Mark Zuckerberg also visited Jeremy Valenson's lab in 2013, and then I think 13, 14, and then just a month later bought Oculus for $2 billion or whatever it was. So he saw the great potential for this technology. So so we should all care about it. not just because social scientists care about it, but the reason we social scientists care about it is that it will have a major impact on society. It will change the way that we interact with each other online. It redefines the internet. You've probably all heard of Web3. So it's integrated with that idea of a decentralized web. And so that's a massive shift in the way that people transact economically. So, Web 1 was information, Web 2 was social, Web 3 is now economic or financial. And with each of these developments or each steps of the evolution of this information technology, the means of everyday life, of work, play, school, production, etc., have changed dramatically. So that's why it's important to me and to us, I think.
All right, great. Thank you for sharing that, and giving us sort of a broad perspective of why you study this. And I think for all of us, I think we're all starting to experience these effects, if we haven't already been for some time, in these various aspects of our life, including our field. So maybe I turn it over to you for your presentation this morning, and I'm excited. You have some graphics and some images to help us work through this. At least for me, I'm a visual learner, so it's helpful for me in a topic that I am not an expert on. So
Sure. So yeah, not a great title here, though it is a title that I've used in an article previously describing the relationship between the metaverse and blockchain and NFTs. And so the metaverse is money, but what is the metaverse anyway? If I'm going to leave you all with one point, before you get bored of what I'm telling you, the one point is that there's value in virtual goods beyond their potential as investment vehicles. And we're at a moment in time where people might think, oh, NFTs are all about collectible art and it's valuable because I can sell it to someone else who will think it's valuable, right? And that is a house of cards, I think, that will come crashing down quite soon. But there's still value in this, right? Even though we're seeing this crypto winter or whatever you want to call it, there's still value. It was overvalued. So we'll come back to that. So what is the metaverse anyway? The metaverse is this place that will create that value that I argue is intrinsic, is not just speculative. So it's an interconnected, immersive network of virtual spaces. So it's immersive in the sense that I can put on, where's my closest VR headset? Oh, they're too far away. You put on a VR headset and you're surrounded by the virtual space. And it's not just for gaming and shooting your friends. It's for working, socializing, going to class, having meetings, etc., and of course playing as well. The term coined in Snow Crash also popularized the term avatar and I'll talk a little bit about what that means. And as I mentioned, it inspired me. One important point here is that there will be one metaverse. It doesn't exist yet because these virtual worlds, we can go into many different virtual worlds, but they're not interconnected yet. So there will be one, just like there is one internet, or at least we refer to it as the internet, right? There are actually different corners of the internet and great firewalls and other oppressive regimes, restricting access to the internet, but there's still just one. There are not many metaverses, nor will there ever be in this regard, or nor at least should we think of it that way, because then it gets too confusing. All right, and so you'll navigate it in a metaverse browser. Why all the hubbub? Well, in the year 2000, when I was in that lab at Stanford, they had a $300,000 VR setup. You needed a $15,000 headset, which is a bit more than it costs now. But you needed massive computers, right? $200,000 just for tracking. $100,000 rendering workstation. That's like, your desktop computer. They weren't fast enough back then to handle the needs to run a virtual world without making your participants vomit. jump ahead a decade-ish and it drops down. Oh, my slide, I don't know. Am I seeing? Yeah, my slide is cut off a little bit here. Let me go back and so the aspect ratio doesn't work with Zoom apparently. So yeah, about $3,000 in 2012-ish. Drops down a little bit, but not much by 2016. This is around the time Vive gets released. Vive is maybe the second most trusted name in VR headsets after Oculus. But then, of course, Oculus got bought by Facebook, which meant it immediately became untrusted in personal privacy and other aspects of social media. But in any case, Vive is a strong product as well. But in 2020, Oculus releases the Quest 1 and then the Quest 2, or 19 and then 20. So $300 out the door from 2000 to 2020. We dropped from $300,000 to $300. That is a huge drop, right? And we know from mass media technologies, economies of scale, people will be buying these things and they will eventually saturate the market the same way that other mass media technologies have in the past. All right, so what's so important about VR anyway? It gives you the sense of presence or social presence or spatial presence. I think those are the two most important drivers to using these technologies. What's so different about the metaverse now compared to Second Life? Well, decentralization. So what does that mean? You guys know this stuff, right? You know what blockchain is. It's this decentralized ledger of who is transacting what with whom. I like to call it gossiping computers to oversimplify it. And so, as you know, blockchain supports crypto assets, which include cryptocurrencies and NFTs. A cryptocurrency is digital money. It is fungible, tends to be fungible. One crypto coin can be replaced with another. Most people have heard of Bitcoin. Lots of people have heard of Ethereum, maybe not as many, which is different because it allows you to program smart contracts. That basically means you can track the movement of more than just the currency. You can track NFTs, non-fungible tokens. They can't be exchanged for another one of equal value because each one in theory is unique in the same way that a piece of art is unique, or at least traditionally was unique. Now it's fraught, right? You can buy a CryptoPunk or a Bored Ape, and someone else can buy the same exact looking one, but you might have version 126 and they have version 352, and the blockchain knows that those two things are different, and for whatever reason your version might be worth more than the other one. But that probably won't last because of the way markets work, right? If they are identical functionally, then they're, even though they're non-fungible, their value should eventually, through kind of a repeated game, go to equivalence. So the space is fraught, I think, because the potential for people to try to make a quick buck and scam in this space, not necessarily counterfeiting, which I know is your focus, but just through simple copying and preying on a lack of understanding of what this technology is. A lot of people flocked to this space and made a lot of money in nefarious ways. But let's get back to what the real value is, right? So we've got this Venn diagram here where I try to illustrate the decentralized foundations of the metaverse. So the metaverse is this large notion of interconnected virtual worlds, right? And blockchain, which facilitates cryptocurrencies, which facilitate, or crypto assets, which facilitate NFTs. This is a part of the metaverse. It's not the whole thing, right? We can have virtual worlds in the metaverse that you can get into easily that are not part of this decentralized Web3 idea. So that's important here. This Venn diagram illustrates the metaverse includes, but doesn't only include these other things. And I do have blockchain almost entirely within the metaverse. Maybe that's not accurate either. Maybe I should Yeah, now that I think about it, there are plenty of blockchain applications that have nothing to do with the metaverse. But I'm very metaverse focused, so this is my myopic view, maybe. But the most important piece here is that the goods, the avatars, the avatar clothing and virtual houses and offices and real estate and furniture, all of that has value in the metaverse, in part because they can be owned as NFTs and thus resold to other people, hence the potential for speculative value. But I argue that that's not the main value. The value there is in its usage in the metaverse. Usage in the metaverse, what does that even mean, right? It's this virtual network of spaces. How can I use stuff? What does it matter? So let's talk about that. Well, avatars are your outfit in the metaverse in the same way that you might choose an outfit to go to work or go to a party or go to visit your parents. You will choose an avatar for different social events, and maybe not you, but maybe people who grow up with these technologies and are kind of native to them. They will switch outfits as easily as I don't know, you can throw a Tic Tac in your mouth, right? Much easier than putting on clothing. So what is an avatar anyway? Well, the word comes from Hinduism. It means descent of a god to earthly form. It was used in Ultima Quest of the Avatar to try to convey a gravitas to this game. It's not just like controlling a character and, you know, irrelevant to your life. It's your earthly manifestation. You are the god controlling this avatar in this digital plane, right? Or so goes the narrative of the game. We as media technology scholars like to define it in this way or in similar ways, as a mediated representation of a human user that facilitates interactions with other users, entities, or the environment. So it's mediated. It's not you yourself. Represents a human. So it's not a computer agent. It's not an algorithm. It's not Siri. Siri is not an avatar. Now, one day, if you argue that Siri has become intelligent and has a virtual manifestation that represents Siri but is not Siri itself, maybe you could call that an avatar. But that's I think once we hit the point where AI are sentient, and we're not quite there yet, though some Google engineers would beg to differ. And also, it's important that we think about avatars as entities that facilitate interactions with other stuff, users, and objects. So it's not a picture of you on the wall, right? It could be your virtual house with a digital image of yourself. But if you're not using that to interact with people in real time, then it's not really an avatar. It's more like an agent that looks like you. So maybe a doppelganger agent. And there is some research on those concepts. But okay. I think I might have frozen on my other machine.
Yep.
So okay, well, that answers
You're
the
coming through
question.
here though, so
That's good. That's good. For some reason, I was optimistic that machine wouldn't freeze, but it did. So it means I haven't solved the problem. Anyway, I'm glad I moved to the next slide because here I am, and I'll be back on the other machine in a minute with my slides. But yeah, so this is some early research about willingness to pay, and I can, oh, can you unlock my video, please? Willingness to pay for different types of avatar objects. So we did a survey with, oh, I probably lost my slides then. No problem. So we did a survey on Prolific, which is a survey platform kind of like Qualtrics has survey panels, or you may have heard of Amazon Mechanical Turk. So it's similar to that, but they pay a fair wage, and they kind of screen participants a little better than at least MTurk, though there are still some data presentation. Whoa, there we go. Challenges. So we have to screen people out who don't pay much attention. So the data quality is not quite as strong as you get from a student sample, but it's more representative. So we have a mean age of 33
and they're coming from a general adult population. And they're willing to take my survey for $3.50 or so for a 15-minute survey. That's like a $14 an hour or so return. So that's an important factor, because we're asking them how much they are willing to pay for things. So you can consider, and we do control for income in some of our analyses. I'm not sure we did for this kind of descriptive analysis. But in any case, we asked them, how much would you be willing to pay for these different types of avatar items? And we just first asked about avatar clothing. We asked for different types of clothing, but just looking at the top, because then we asked for avatar clothing top, like a t-shirt, as the kind of basis of comparison at this level. And it came, the data suggests that people were willing to spend about $5 for an avatar top. Now think about, like, maybe you know someone or you yourself play Fortnite or play other digital games where you can buy virtual objects. People spend a lot of money, hundreds of dollars, on skins they're called, for their avatars or for their weapons or for any digital items in games, right? These are objects that don't have functional purpose in the game. You're not buying the object because it helps you win faster or get more points. You're buying it because it illustrates your fashion sense or is funny. So there's social value, but there isn't game value here, and that's very important, right? So our standard deviation, as you can see, is $24 on that $5. That means we had a lot of people on that $5 mean. It means we had a lot of people who said zero, but then we had people up in the $300 range. But here's the interesting piece: looking at the same type of item and asking how much they'd spend as for that item as an NFT, we see an increase, and that is statistically significant, I believe. But I'm sorry, I haven't presented the statistics here. We just got this paper accepted as a conference paper, but it's still under review as a journal article. So I don't have all the statistics readily available from the conference paper. So there's an increase from 5 to 870-ish. And then we see another increase. We said, name a brand that you value. And then we asked them, how much would you pay for an avatar t-shirt that you'll be using? Same framing for the question. You're going to use this clothing in the workplace, right? You're going to go to meetings in this avatar. So how much would you be willing to pay for a branded avatar t-shirt with this brand that you just said you would value? And the price goes up that they'd be willing to spend. But look at that difference between branded clothing as an NFT and not an NFT. There's essentially no difference. So NFT ownership, the ability to resell your avatar t-shirt, increases willingness to pay when it's unbranded. But when it's branded, there seems to be no difference. And I'm not sure this directly speaks to the idea of counterfeiting and brands, but I think there's okay, and I've rejoined on the other one. I think there's an important implicit kind of indirect connection here, which is that branding matters a lot to people in these virtual spaces. And so they're willing to pay more than twice as much for an unbranded non-NFT piece of avatar clothing as they are compared to unbranded. They'll pay more for branded, regardless of whether it's an NFT. But if it's an NFT, then there's more control over who has it and how it can be used. So I think in your industry, right, you're probably looking carefully at what ownership means and how we can prove ownership and control the flow of goods that are not legitimately owned. So that means that NFTs are probably helpful for you in this regard. But your consumers might not see much value in it, right? You might not be able to pay, you might not be able to charge more to sell people clothing, branded clothing as an NFT. At least so goes this early research. Maybe you should even charge less if it gives you more security over the goods that are being sold. Maybe that's one implication here. You know, I don't need to spend much time on this. I did want to show you that I teach class in VR. Let me make sure that I share my audio here. This is my student Mia. Quick video. This one has like 20,000 views on TikTok compared to everything else, which has just a few hundred.
Most people are shocked when I tell them that I have a class in VR, so I thought I would show you guys what that really looks like. The class is located in the STEM building at Michigan State University. We use Oculus Quest 2s, which are provided by the university for free. The class is instructed by Dr. Rabindra Ratan, which makes it interesting to say the least.
This is the biggest VR space I've ever had.
Make sure to come back for part 2 to get the inside scoop on this class from Robbie himself. And of course, for more resources, you can check out our podcast, SpartyCast.
Yeah, so you guys can check out our podcast too, if you like. But I just wanted to illustrate to you that these technologies are being used. It's not just gaming. It's not just, you know, vanity avatar purchases. In my class, we meet in VR. We met in the classroom, as you can see here, synchronously, of course, and synchronously within the virtual spaces. And we would hang out and talk about these topics related to VR and avatars and training and the metaverse. And next semester, I'll be living in California and teaching entirely through this modality, right? Teaching in VR. So this is important, I think, in this conversation to illustrate that I believe we are increasingly moving toward these modes of information sharing and kind of meetings in VR. And my students certainly had better class discussions. They remembered more. They spent less time multitasking and looking at their email in my class than they would have in a Zoom class. I mean, if I were giving this talk in VR right now, I think you would all maybe have less trouble paying attention 30 minutes into it, just by nature of the technology, right? It would be harder to take notes. It would be harder for me. I'm not sure I could very easily kind of create a virtual world that illustrates the points I'm making. I could bring up my PowerPoint slides in VR just like I could here. But there are some challenges, but overall it's better. It's definitely better. I don't need to show this video, but it's basically my students saying they love it. And then there are also potential interesting psychological phenomena that come along with these technologies that maybe represent potential upsides and downsides for your industry. So the Proteus effect, this is one of my main theoretical loves. It's based on the notion that avatars are malleable, just like the Greek god Proteus. And when an avatar's shape changes, it doesn't necessarily look exactly like you, it changes how you act. So multiple studies, over 54 now, I think, have been conducted on this phenomenon, finding things like people who use taller avatars will negotiate more aggressively. People who use more attractive avatars will have more social confidence. They'll stand closer to other people in a virtual environment, and choose more attractive dating partners. My favorite one in the bottom right-hand corner, those are the avatars actually used in a couple of those studies. People who use inventor-looking avatars actually come up with more creative ideas during a brainstorming task compared to non-inventor street clothes avatars. So clothing matters in the real world, right? We know dress to impress, or dress for the part, etc. And so avatars matter too, and avatar clothing matters. And people are willing to pay for that avatar clothing, and that avatar clothing will change how you feel about yourself. Maybe that's why people are willing to pay more than 2.5 times more for branded avatar clothing, because the brands that we wear, of of course, have psychological associations that influence our confidence level, our ability to interact with other people, kind of the social signals that we send to other people relating to status or interests or culture or in groups, out groups, etc. Clothing is so important. Branding is part of that, and avatars are definitely, the mechanism, the outfits of the metaverse. So yeah, and this potential to influence people through their avatars is not negligible. We have an effect size of nearly 0.3 on the most recent meta-analysis we did for the studies conducted in VR. So we split it between VR and flat screen. So that bodes, well, you could say it bodes well. You could say it's also scary because people are going to be using this stuff on a regular basis, and they're going to be influenced by their avatars. If you want to go check out, if there's one product that you try after this discussion today, it's the one on the right-hand side, Ready Player Me. You can go to Ready Player Me on your phone, and in the browser, you don't even have to download a new application. You go to Ready Player Me on your phone, and you say, I want to make an avatar. You don't even need to create a login. You can take a picture of yourself, 10 seconds later, boom, you're in an avatar. Another 1 or 2 minutes, and you've customized it. You've chosen the clothing, and they are preparing. This company is, I think, in some ways, the best metaverse company, at least philosophically, I've seen, because they are preparing to work across hundreds, literally hundreds of partners' platforms. So if you buy that Supreme Avatar t-shirt for your Ready Player Me avatar, you can be confident that you can take it with you into VR chat or Mozilla Hubs or any of these platforms, Immerse, any of these platforms that are partners with Ready Player Me. Not all of them are, but many of them. And I think Ready Player Me is poised to become the standard avatar platform. And as we've talked about today, avatars are so important for identity and value in this metaverse thing. So check out Ready Player Me. Make yourself an avatar. If you're really adventurous, go grab your Oculus Quest 2 headset and tell Ready Player Me to make that avatar available for you in VR chat. And then a few clicks and reading some instructions online, you can be in that avatar. Within 5 minutes of taking that picture of yourself on your phone, you can be in the avatar, dancing around in a virtual mirror in VR chat. And that is, when I did that the first time, I've studied this for years, right? I've been ready for this. And I was surprised and excited. So yeah, here we are. What questions do you have?
So I'd encourage you all to use the Q&A function below if you have questions. And while we're waiting for some questions to come in, Robbie, I'll ask you, you mentioned a little bit of it. How do you see this research applied to brand protection? Is it mostly around like the luxury good clothing space, or is there more potential coming for that?
Well, it's around every brand you can imagine. Every brand you can imagine at least wanting to have a footprint in the metaverse. And you might initially scoff at that idea. Why would my plumber need a, why would Roto-Rooter need a presence in the metaverse, right? That seems ridiculous. And that's like in, 1992 saying, why would Roto-Rooter need a website? We've got a phone book and they can call and we can get a guy to come fix my plumbing now, right? But it's often, based on that type of thinking is often based on an expectation that things won't change. And we certainly know things are changing. They always are. The only thing that doesn't change is the fact that everything changes, and it's changing in this direction. In the same way that now everyone needs a website if you're a business. Every business, every brand will be in the metaverse as long as they want to continue operating kind of at a normal scale. So yeah, I would say this is not just luxury brands. It is probably mostly luxury brands in the year 2022, because luxury brands are the only companies in many ways that have the luxury of thinking about this space and we've seen, as I mentioned, the NFT space being largely focused on art and high couture, right? But that's going to change, and so everyone should be ready.
So I see one question that showed up. I don't know if you can answer this one. Can you see it? If someone
Yeah.
created an NFT of my original art or rendering, is this considered copyright infringement?
So I would say yes, in theory, it is, especially if they're making money off it. But at the same time, good luck enforcing that, right? Like, well, it's the Wild West. It's the Napster days of the year 2000. You know, if somebody creates a digital copy of my music and posts it on the web and shares it for free, is that copyright infringement? Yes. Was everyone who could connect to the internet downloading free music in the year 2000-ish? Yes. And it took some time for the industry and the lawyers and kind of governance to catch up. So so it's a good question, but I don't think it's the right question. I think the right I mean, it's a great question, so I'm not critical of the question, but I think I am not optimistic that it matters. I would say the question really should be is, so what do we do to enforce copyright in the metaverse, right? How do we build organizations? And yeah, so Noel, yeah, you're saying OpenSea is responsive to DMCA, which in many ways the DMCA laws were a response to that early 2000s Napster dynamic. But OpenSea is not the only place to buy an NFT, and the standards for kind of controlling the flow of NFTs, I think, are still in development, right? We have so many, like, they're not all on the same blockchain. They could be on blockchains besides Ethereum, and there certainly will be a dark metaverse, kind of like the dark web. So it's going to be quite difficult, I think, to enforce, at least right now. But yeah, OpenSea is the biggest player, and so if you control them, you maybe can control most of the market. I don't know much about the Nike versus StockX litigation. Could someone share, or
Dean, would you
maybe I
like
did
to
hear about
expand on that question?
Nike StockX? Oh, I remember this. Yeah. So you can buy the NFT of the sneakers, right? As long as they have one in stock, I think. I haven't been following that one. If someone could,
Oh,
basically,
Aleem
yeah,
added
Nike
there.
is suing stocks, claims some shoes in the stock vault may be counterfeit. So trademark infringement. Oh man, yeah, this is where it gets. No, thank you, Aleem, and also thank you, Noel, for following up. Yeah, we're on the same page. The page of pessimism, maybe, but yeah. So that's a tough question, and I am not a lawyer. I'm a social scientist, so I don't know the ins and outs of these types of legal questions. But yeah, I guess in my understanding, you need the physical object in the vault in order to sell or to use the image, right? And so they're saying if some are counterfeit, then they don't actually own the digital object, so they can't use that. Is that a fair assessment? And if I were to speculate further, all right. verified processing is fault. They've been minting NFTs. Yeah. So it can be traded without taking delivery. This is fraud, right? Like maybe, so digital goods can be replicated in theory without marginal cost or with a negligible marginal cost. And so why would there be a limit on the number of NFTs you could mint from a physical thing that you own technologically? But maybe there will be. I could imagine someone proposing a law where they say, well, there should be a one-to-one. There should be a one-to-one. You can own one digital NFT version of a physical object, and you can prove like this is copy number one. The blockchain can prove it for you, the first minted version of this thing. And if I sell the physical shoes to someone else, they don't actually gain ownership of the NFT unless they bought it too, right? Because both are on the blockchain, but as different items. Maybe that's one solution here. And I think it really, we get into this question of replicability. So one approach, which has some potential, is to try to limit things. But let's think about the models that we saw as successful in the early days of music. What did Apple do? Instead of, I think it really comes down to business models and not legislation. And push back, please, in the text. But I think it comes down to business models and making it cheap enough to own these goods so that people don't try to go, cheap enough to own these goods through official channels, so people don't try to go to unofficial channels that are more likely to sell counterfeits or otherwise, illegal copies, but also profitable enough to those platforms so that they can continue to operate, right? So so Apple did a great job of providing an ecosystem to buy music that was relatively inexpensive. It paid the producers, and it was all legal. And all of those legal agreements, just looking at this in the year 2000, if you were a lawyer for Sony, you must have thought, like, wow, what a mess. How am I going to create agreements behind the scenes? But look at Epic Games, Fortnite, in 2017, 18 even. They are creating collaborations with Disney for trademarked properties like Star Wars to be in Fortnite. You can have a lightsaber and play as a Jedi and fight stormtroopers in Fortnite. Fortnite does not own that content at all, and you're not really buying that content. It's a new way of thinking about the legal arrangements that facilitate a market around digital goods. And so Epic Games has done a great job, I would argue, of navigating some of these murky legal waters. And instead of looking at, and you guys probably have great terms to describe these types of collaborations, instead of looking at the legal approach of restricting consumer behavior, you look at the back end legal mechanisms for spreading revenues based on the uses of these trademarks. Maybe you embed certain types of, like, so this is why I said the NFT market is untested. We have a mental model for NFTs right now that kind of associates one NFT good with the good itself. But what if you could have sub NFTs, and those NFTs are based on a specific trademark? So it's one or it's one type of token. Maybe it's not an NFT, it's just a general token. So you've got Nike coin, and every Nike product that's an NFT or otherwise has a Nike coin embedded in it. And that makes it trackable on the blockchain. And then any platform that is using it is tracked on the blockchain and is charged, right? And if they don't pay, you do what you would do with, like like takedown notices, right? DCMA laws. But if it's tracked, then it's easy to charge a reasonable rate. And instead of trying to control which platforms are using your stuff, you're just trying to track it using a kind of novel approach to this blockchain technology and NFTs. Okay, describe the initial Spotify model. Make streaming an unlimited, cheap and easy enough, cost effective, $5 instead of time. Yeah, exactly. Spotify, I think, took the Apple model and iterated on it even further, and just said, yeah, let's make this stuff as accessible as possible. At the end of the day, I mean, there is kind of a race to the bottom when it comes to media. Right? People don't want to pay for news. They don't want to pay for music. I don't know why, because media is so valuable. We spend so much time with it. Maybe that's why, because there's so much consumption. It's a relatively, would we call it inelastic good? Meaning that if price goes up, people's willingness to pay, people's demand declines quickly. So that's different from other things that we can inflate and people will still buy, right? Like food. So the models so in order to navigate this kind of economy, you need to think through media economies of scale. If your margins are increasingly small, then in order to stay in business, you need to produce at a higher scale, which means you need to produce for lower cost, which we know is relatively low for digital goods. But now if you're thinking about minting NFTs and hiring programmers to track things and all that, the cost does go up. So yeah, it's a challenging, brave new world.
I have another question for you, Ravi.
Yeah.
And please, for those in the audience, keep them coming. We have a few more minutes left. You mentioned before a couple things. So a lot of illegal, illicit activity that happens, but the potential too for a dark metaverse. What have you seen so far? What does that look like? What might it look like? I know we have all dealt with the dark web as far as the sale of counterfeit goods, as well as other forms of illicit trade too, but what will that look like in the metaverse space?
I've not heard anyone use the term the dark metaverse until I heard myself say it 10 minutes ago. So this conversation prompted me on that idea. So I haven't given it a lot of thought, but in the same way as I would compare the light web to the dark web, I would consider the dark metaverse to complement the light metaverse, but go deeper down the decentralization rabbit hole, right? Like blockchain in some ways was a boon for the dark web because it at least gave an air of anonymity. You could transact in Bitcoin and feel like you wouldn't have your Silk Road shut down, which we know isn't true. Actually, if anything, these public ledgers are great tools for tracking who's doing what, but it takes time and effort, and there are mechanisms for masking what you're doing. So on the dark web, you're routing your traffic through browsers that in theory are masking your IP address and jumping through different countries and servers. So I would imagine all of that functionality to be similar in the metaverse. But another important element of the dark web is anonymity in self-presentation, whereas in the light web, especially Web 2.0, it became all about social interactions and getting followers and developing a reputation score. So we might see, and this is an argument I've made in mostly in like interviews for news, not in any research articles yet, but but I would like to study this topic, and maybe it relates to what you guys are doing. The argument, oh, and I just posted a link to a great article that summarizes my argument on LinkedIn. So add me on LinkedIn, please. And then you can see my most recent link there. But the argument is reputation systems are essential for facilitating pro-social interactions. In the metaverse, we have the potential to use blockchain technologies as reputation tokens to give people keys to get into places, right? If you want to be able to go to this premier party, computational resources are still limited, so we can't allow everyone in. And we certainly don't want trolls, toxic people who are going to, take advantage of the embodied affordances and make other people feel uncomfortable, etc. So how do you allow people in? Well, you have persistent reputation systems, a crypto wallet, right, which is essentially a mechanism for tracking what you do. It can not only hold your cryptocurrencies, it can also hold your crypto ID card, right? And that can illustrate whether you've gotten good ratings from other people. Do you have any, strikes from verified platforms where they say, this person was acting in a way that was inappropriate or otherwise just, unacceptable by our community standards. So if you use reputation to facilitate positive social interactions in this way in the metaverse, then we can imagine the dark metaverse to go the extreme opposite, where you can have reputation there, but it is designed in ways that completely give the air of masking who you are. And people will use voice changing software, and it's more than just masking your screen name. It's like rarely would you actually use an avatar that looks like yourself. Maybe no one will be in human avatars. Maybe that will become like the cultural norm. Everyone's some sort of, anthropomorphic animal. And yeah, I haven't heard anyone talk about it, but I'm sure. I bet if I Google like the dark web and the dark metaverse, something will come up.
Well, awesome. So thank you for entertaining that question. I appreciate it. And it looks like we are almost out of time. But again, thank you for encouraging people to reach out to you via LinkedIn. Also, if you're interested in more or going further down the road and reading more about Robbie's research projects and what he's working on, we can certainly make that available to all of you. So Robbie, thank you so much for your time today. I appreciate it. Thanks again to our gold sponsors, Abbott, and I appreciate all of you who attended today. Have a great weekend.
Yeah, and by the way, I Googled the dark web in quotes and dark metaverse in quotes, and there are only 8 results. So just wait, there's going to be
you coined
8,
a new term today.
There's going to be 8,000 in a few years. Yeah.
All right.
Thank you so much. Nice to
Thanks.
meet you all.
Thanks,
All right.
Robbie.